There are moments rare, undeniable moments when time itself seems to pause, not because the world has stopped, but because something beyond the world has stepped in. This right here is one of those moments. And you feel it, don't you? That subtle pull in your chest, that quiet tension in your thoughts, that unexplainable urge to keep listening, to not look away, to not scroll past. This is not random. This is not coincidence. This is a divine interruption. He speaks now, not as a whisper lost in noise, but as a voice that cuts through distraction, through doubt, through delay. The voice of Archangel Michael is not gentle today, it is firm. He is direct. It is urgent. And he says, you keep ignoring him. Not once, not twice, but over and over again. You have felt something calling your attention, and yet you turned away. You brushed it off. You told yourself, it's nothing. You convinced yourself it could wait. But what if it couldn't? What if every moment you delayed, every sign you dismissed, every nudge you silenced was leading to this exact second? Because May 19th is not just a date. It is a marker, a line drawn in the unseen, a moment heaven has circled long before you ever knew it existed. And now you are standing in it. Not tomorrow, not later. Now, you felt it building, haven't you? That strange shift in your environment. The way conversations feel different. The way certain people act just slightly off. The way your intuition has been louder lately, almost demanding your attention. You tried to ignore it. You tried to stay comfortable. But comfort is no longer your calling. Awareness is. Because something has already happened behind the scenes. Something has already been spoken. A confession, unexpected, unfiltered, undeniable, has been released. And it carries your name in it. It touches your life more deeply than you realize right now. This is why the urgency feels different. This is why your spirit won't let you relax into denial anymore. You were not meant to stumble upon this message casually. You were summoned. Yes, you. Out of everyone, out of all the noise, out of all the distractions, this moment found you because you are connected to what is unfolding. And Archangel Michael stands at the edge of this revelation, not asking, not suggesting, but commanding your attention. He sees what you cannot yet see. He hears what you have not yet heard. And he knows what you have been avoiding. That inner voice, that feeling you keep pushing aside, that person you keep making excuses for, that situation you keep delaying, it is all connected. All of it. And now the veil is thinning. This is not fear. This is preparation. This is not punishment. This is awakening. You are being pulled out of passive living and into active awareness. Because what is about to be revealed next, what this person has confessed, will not just surprise you. It will shift your understanding of everything you thought you knew. The question is no longer if you will face the truth. The question is, will you be ready when it fully arrives? Because it is already closer than you think. Type "I am ready" in the comments if you feel this message stirring your spirit. Blessing code 1919 is now activating around you. There has been a voice walking with you closer than your own thoughts, quieter than your loudest fears, yet stronger than every distraction that tried to pull you away. You know this voice. You have felt it in moments when everything else went silent. You have sensed it when you were about to make a decision, and something inside you hesitated, paused, whispered, "Wait." And yet you moved anyway. You continued. You told yourself it didn't matter. But it did. He always did. Archangel Michael speaks again, and his tone does not soften, because this is not the time for comfort. It is the time for clarity. He says, you have heard him more than you admit. And deep within, something in you recognizes the truth of that statement. Because this is not about a voice you never encountered. This is about a voice you recognized and chose to overlook. Not because you are weak, not because you are lost, but because sometimes truth asks more of you than you feel ready to give. You remember those moments, don't you? The times when something told you not to trust too quickly, but you did anyway. The times when something nudged you to step away, but you stayed out of habit, out of comfort, out of hope that things would change on their own. The times when your spirit felt unsettled around a person, a place, a conversation, but you silenced that feeling just to keep the peace. That was not anxiety. That was not overthinking. That was alignment trying to reach you. And the more you ignored it, the quieter it seemed to become, not because it disappeared, but because you trained yourself not to listen. You adapted to the noise of the world, to the expectations around you, to the patterns that felt familiar even when they were not healthy. You convinced yourself that ignoring the discomfort would make it go away. But discomfort is often the doorway to revelation. It is the signal that something is out of place, something is misaligned, something is waiting to be corrected. This is why things have felt heavier lately. This is why your thoughts have been more restless, your emotions more sensitive, your awareness more intense. Because the voice you've been ignoring has not stopped speaking. It has only grown more urgent. It has been trying to get your attention in ways you cannot easily dismiss anymore. Through repeated patterns, through unexpected delays, through conversations that leave you questioning everything, through moments where clarity almost breaks through only for you to push it back again. But now, that cycle is breaking. Archangel Michael stands in this moment not to accuse you, but to awaken you. He is not pointing out your past to shame you. He is revealing it to prepare you. Because the voice you've been ignoring is directly connected to what is about to unfold. It has been guiding you toward this very realization. It has been trying to position you ahead of what is coming. And every time you ignored it, you delayed your own clarity. Yet even in that delay, you were not abandoned. You were not left behind. You were being given time to grow into the awareness required to handle the truth that is now approaching. Because not all revelations can be received too early. Some truths require a certain level of readiness, a certain depth of perception, a certain strength of spirit. And now, you are closer to that readiness than you have ever been before. This is why the voice feels different now. It no longer whispers, it presses. It no longer suggests, it insists. It is no longer asking for your attention, it is demanding it. Because what it has been trying to show you is no longer something you can afford to ignore. The cost of silence has become too great. The weight of avoidance has become too heavy. And here is the part you must understand. This voice is not separate from you. It is aligned with your purpose. It is connected to your protection. It is the part of you that sees beyond appearances, beyond words, beyond temporary emotions. It is the part of you that knows when something is right and when something is not. And it has been trying to lead you away from what drains you and toward what restores you. But you must choose to listen. Because what is coming next, what this person has confessed, will confirm everything that voice has been trying to tell you all along. It will bring clarity to every doubt you suppressed. It will expose every situation you questioned but never fully confronted. And when that moment arrives, you will not be able to say you were unaware. You will realize you were prepared slowly, persistently, patiently by the very voice you kept ignoring. Now the question shifts again. It is no longer about what you missed. It is about what you will do with what you are finally ready to hear. Because the voice is still here, and this time it will not be ignored. Type "I will listen" in the comments if you are ready to receive what is being revealed. Blessing code 2222 is now aligning your spirit with divine clarity. There is something you need to understand right now, and it may shift the way you see everything that has been happening around you. While you were going about your days, trying to make sense of your emotions, trying to maintain balance, trying to keep peace where tension quietly lived, something was already unfolding behind the scenes. Words were spoken, truths were released, and a confession, one that was never meant to reach you so soon, has already entered the atmosphere of your life. Archangel Michael steps forward again, and his presence feels sharper here, more intentional, more focused. He says, "What was hidden has already begun to speak." And this is where your spirit must remain steady, because what you are about to realize is not something that appeared out of nowhere. This confession did not begin today. It has been forming for a long time, building in silence, growing in pressure, waiting for the moment when it could no longer remain contained. You may not have heard the words yet, but your spirit has felt their weight. That shift you noticed, that subtle unease, that feeling that something was changing without clear explanation. This is why. Because truth, when it begins to rise, creates movement before it creates understanding. It stirs the atmosphere. It disrupts the familiar. It causes things that once felt stable to feel uncertain. And you have been standing in that uncertainty, trying to name something you could not yet see. But now, the unseen is becoming visible. This confession involves someone you know, not a distant figure, not a stranger passing through your life. Someone within your circle of awareness. Someone whose presence you have accepted, whose words you have heard, whose actions you have tried to interpret in ways that made sense at the time. But what they have now revealed, whether intentionally or unintentionally, carries a truth that cannot be undone. And this is where the tension begins to rise within you, because part of you already senses who this could be. Part of you is replaying conversations, remembering moments that felt slightly off, words that didn't fully align, actions that left questions in your mind. You dismissed those moments before. You chose peace over confrontation. You chose understanding over suspicion. But now, those same moments are returning, not as confusion, but as confirmation. Archangel Michael does not rush this moment, because he knows the weight of realization requires space. He allows you to feel it, to process it, to sit with the awareness that something significant has shifted. And then he speaks again, with clarity that leaves no room for doubt. This confession was not meant to harm you. It was meant to reveal what you could no longer afford to ignore. You must understand this carefully. This is not about betrayal in the way you may first interpret it. This is about exposure. This is about truth stepping forward after being buried under layers of silence, avoidance, and misinterpretation. What this person has confessed may not have been directed at you directly, but it affects you deeply. It changes the way you must now see them. It changes the way you must now see yourself within that connection. And the reason this moment feels so intense is because it aligns perfectly with the voice you have been ignoring. Everything that voice tried to show you, every hesitation, every pause, every internal warning, is now being echoed through this confession. It is not new information. It is confirmed information. It is the external manifestation of what your internal awareness has been trying to communicate all along. This is why you cannot look away now. Because once truth reveals itself, even partially, it begins a process that cannot be reversed. You cannot return to not knowing. You cannot return to the same level of comfort. You cannot continue in the same patterns without feeling the weight of misalignment. This is the turning point where awareness becomes responsibility. And yet, there is something important you must hold on to in this moment. You are not being placed in this situation without guidance. You are not being left to figure this out alone. Archangel Michael is present not just as a messenger, but as a protector of your clarity. He is ensuring that what is revealed to you is not distorted by fear, not exaggerated by emotion, and not dismissed by habit. Because what matters now is not just what was said. What matters is how you respond to it. Will you acknowledge the truth, even if it disrupts your comfort? Will you allow this confession to realign your understanding, even if it challenges your previous beliefs? Will you finally listen to the voice that has been guiding you, now that it has been confirmed from outside of you? Because this is not just a moment of revelation. This is the beginning of transformation. And what you do next will determine how this truth shapes your life moving forward. Type "I accept the truth" in the comments if you are ready to walk in clarity. Blessing code 3333 is now activating divine revelation in your path. As this truth begins to settle into your spirit, understand this: every time light is revealed, it is meant to reach more than just one soul. What you are receiving right now is not only for you. It is meant to ripple outward, to awaken others who are still walking in confusion. Word declares, "Let there be light," and when light is released, darkness cannot remain. If your spirit is stirring, and you feel that pull within you, this is your moment to act. I invite you, step into alignment with this mission and sow into it, because every seed you release becomes a torch in someone else's darkness. Your support through Super Thanks or the PayPal link in the description is not a donation. It is a divine act that opens doors for truth to reach those who are still searching. I declare over you, as you give, clarity will multiply in your life, and what has been hidden will be revealed in greater measure. This is your moment of obedience. Step forward now and release your seed. There is a weight you have been carrying, and it did not begin today. It did not arrive suddenly, and it did not come without warning. It formed slowly, layer by layer, moment by moment, every time you chose silence over truth, every time you felt something was off, but decided not to confront it, every time you pushed aside what your spirit was trying to show you. And now, that weight has reached a point where it can no longer remain hidden beneath distraction or denial. Archangel Michael speaks into this moment with a tone that is steady, unwavering, and deeply revealing. He says, "Silence has a cost, and you have felt it." And as those words settle into you, something begins to make sense in a way it never fully did before. Because what you thought was just emotional exhaustion, what you believed was simply stress or confusion, was actually the accumulation of unspoken truth pressing against your spirit. You have been holding back more than you realize. Holding back questions you wanted to ask. Holding back reactions you felt were justified. Holding back boundaries you knew you needed to set. And each time you held back, you told yourself it was the right thing to do. You told yourself it would keep things calm, keep things balanced, keep things manageable. But what it actually did was create a space where misalignment could grow unchecked. And misalignment, when left unaddressed, does not remain neutral. It begins to affect your clarity. It begins to cloud your decisions. It begins to drain your energy in ways you cannot always explain. That is why you have felt tired in situations that should not exhaust you. That is why certain interactions leave you unsettled long after they end. That is why your thoughts have been circling the same questions without resolution. Because silence does not resolve truth, it delays it. But delay does not mean disappearance. Everything you chose not to address has been waiting. Waiting beneath the surface, waiting for the moment when it could no longer be ignored. And that moment has now arrived. The confession you are being prepared to fully understand is not isolated from this silence. It is connected to it. It is the result of what was left unspoken for too long. It is the release of what was building while you were trying to maintain peace. And this is where the realization becomes deeper, because you begin to see that silence was not protection. It was postponement. It gave time for truth to grow in complexity instead of clarity. It allowed situations to evolve without your full awareness, and created distance between what you felt and what you expressed. And that distance is where confusion took root. Archangel Michael does not bring this to you to burden you further. He brings it to you to free you from the cycle. Because once you recognize the weight of silence, you also recognize your power to release it. You are not bound to continue carrying what you no longer need to hold. You are not required to maintain peace at the cost of your own alignment. You are not meant to stay quiet when your spirit is calling you to awareness. This is the shift that is beginning to take place within you now. You are starting to see the difference between peace and avoidance, between patience and delay, between understanding and self-dismissal. And as that understanding grows, so does your ability to respond differently moving forward. But this transition is not without discomfort, because releasing silence means facing what you have been avoiding. It means allowing truth to rise fully, without filtering it, without minimizing it, without reshaping it into something easy to accept. It means standing in clarity even when that clarity changes the way you relate to someone, the way you see a situation, the way you understand your own role within it. And that is exactly why this moment is so important. Because the confession that has been made is not just revealing something about another person. It is revealing something about your own journey. It is showing you where you have been holding back, where you have been compromising your awareness, where you have been choosing comfort over clarity. And now, you are being given the opportunity to step out of that pattern. Archangel Michael stands with you in this transition, not as someone who demands perfection, but as someone who calls you into truth. He is not asking you to react impulsively. He is not urging you into confrontation without understanding. He is guiding you toward alignment, steady, intentional, grounded alignment that comes from seeing clearly and responding wisely. Because what comes next will require that clarity. You cannot carry silence into the next stage of this revelation. You cannot ignore what has already been confirmed. You cannot return to the version of yourself that overlooked what your spirit was trying to show you. That version of you has already begun to fade. What is emerging now is a version of you that listens, a version of you that acknowledges, a version of you that responds not from fear or habit, but from awareness and truth. And that shift changes everything. Because once silence is broken internally, everything external begins to realign around it. Type "I release the silence" in the comments if you are ready to walk in truth. Lesson code 4444 is now lifting the weight from your spirit and restoring your clarity. There are moments when guidance is gentle, when truth arrives like a whisper, offering you time, space, and patience to understand. But there are also moments when that same guidance shifts, when it no longer asks, no longer waits, no longer softens its tone. This is one of those moments. And as Archangel Michael steps forward again, there is no mistaking the urgency in his presence now. It is not fear-driven. It is not meant to overwhelm you. It is precise, intentional, and necessary. He says, "You cannot continue as if nothing has been revealed." Those words settle heavily, not because they are harsh, but because they are undeniable. You have reached a point where awareness has already begun to take root. You have felt the shift. You have recognized the patterns. You have sensed the truth moving beneath the surface of your life. And now, With the confession unfolding and the silence breaking, there is no space left for passive living. The time of waiting to see has ended. The time of hoping it resolves itself has passed. Because what you are standing in right now is not a temporary disturbance. It is a moment of decision. Archangel Michael does not present this as an option to consider lightly. He presents it as a line that has already been drawn. On one side of that line is continued delay, returning to old habits, dismissing what has been revealed, choosing comfort over clarity once again. On the other side is alignment, acknowledging truth fully, responding with awareness, and stepping into a new way of seeing and acting. And he warns you clearly, remaining in the middle is no longer possible. This is where many hesitate. This is where the mind begins to question, to rationalize, to soften the edges of what has been revealed. You may feel the urge to minimize what you've sensed, to reinterpret the confession in a way that feels less disruptive, to convince yourself that perhaps it is not as significant as it seems. But that is exactly what the warning is addressing. Because the danger is not in the truth itself. The danger is in ignoring it after it has been revealed. You have done that before. You have taken moments of clarity and allowed them to fade. You have recognized patterns and then returned to them as if nothing had changed. You have felt the need to act differently but delayed that action until the urgency disappeared. And each time, the cycle repeated, slightly heavier, slightly more complex, slightly more difficult to break. But this time is different. This time, the clarity is stronger. The confirmation is clear. The connection between what you felt and what has now been revealed is too precise to dismiss. And because of that, the consequences of ignoring it would not be the same as before. It would not simply be another delay. It would deepen the very pattern you are now being called to break. Archangel Michael's warning is not about punishment. It is about protection. He sees what continues if nothing changes. He sees how the same dynamics would persist, how the same confusion would return, how the same emotional weight would rebuild itself over time. And he stands in this moment to interrupt that path before it extends further. He says, "You are not being shown this to remain the same." And that statement carries a responsibility that cannot be avoided. Because once truth is recognized, action becomes part of alignment. Not impulsive action, not reaction driven by emotion, but intentional movement that reflects what you now understand. This is where your awareness must deepen. You are not being asked to confront everything at once. You are not being pushed into immediate decisions without reflection. But you are being called to stop pretending that nothing has changed. You are being called to stop returning to the same mindset that allowed silence to continue. You are being called to honor what has been revealed by allowing it to influence how you move forward. Because ignoring it now would not restore peace. It would distort it. And this is the part that requires strength, not the strength to fight, not the strength to prove anything, but the strength to remain aligned with truth even when it challenges your comfort. The strength to hold on to clarity even when it shifts your perspective. The strength to trust what has been revealed without needing constant reassurance. Archangel Michael stands as a protector in this moment, but his protection is not passive. It is active. It requires your participation. It requires your willingness to remain aware, to remain grounded, to remain honest with yourself about what you now see. Because what comes next will build on this decision. If you step into alignment, the path ahead begins to open with clarity. If you return to avoidance, the path becomes heavier, more complicated, more difficult to navigate. And that is why the warning is urgent, not because something is rushing you, but because this moment is precise. It is positioned exactly where it needs to be for you to choose differently. You are not the same as you were before this message began. You have seen more. You have felt more. You have understood more. And now, you must respond accordingly. Type "I choose alignment" in the comments if you are ready to walk forward in truth. Blessing code 5555 is now activating strength and clarity within your path. There is a reason your spirit has not been at rest. There is a reason certain thoughts have returned to you again and again, even when you tried to move past them. There is a reason why, in the quiet moments, your mind drifts back to a specific person, a specific presence, a specific connection that has never fully settled in your spirit the way it appeared to on the surface. That reason is no longer hidden. That reason is now stepping into clarity. Archangel Michael speaks again, and this time, his voice carries a sharper edge of revelation. He says, "You already know who this is." And as those words move through you, something shifts internally. Not confusion, not doubt, but recognition. Because this is not about discovering a stranger. This is about acknowledging someone familiar in a way you have not allowed yourself to before. This person has not been distant from your life. They have been present. They have been involved, in ways both visible and subtle. Their words have reached you. Their actions have influenced you. Their presence has shaped moments you once thought were ordinary. But now, those same moments are beginning to rearrange themselves in your memory, forming a clearer picture than you were able to see before. You may have trusted them. You may have given them the benefit of the doubt more times than you can count. You may have overlooked small inconsistencies, small shifts in behavior, small signs that something did not fully align. And each time, you chose understanding. You chose patience. You chose to believe that what you felt was temporary, explainable, harmless. But now, the confession has changed that. It has not created something new. It has uncovered what was already there. It has taken what existed beneath the surface and brought it into a space where it can no longer be dismissed. And this is where your awareness must remain steady, because the truth about this person is not as simple as right or wrong, good or bad. It is layered. It is complex. And it requires you to see beyond appearances. Archangel Michael does not ask you to judge them. He does not ask you to react with anger or resentment. He asks you to see clearly. Because this person's role in your life has not been fully understood until now. They have been part of your environment, but not fully aligned with your path. They have been close enough to influence, but not grounded enough to support you in the way you truly needed. And this is why your spirit hath been unsettled. Because on one level, you recognized something was not right. But on another level, you continued to maintain the connection as if it could remain unchanged. You held on to what was familiar, even when it no longer matched your internal awareness. And that created a tension you could feel but not fully explain. Now, the tension is being resolved, not by removing the person entirely in this moment, but by revealing their position in your life with clarity. You are no longer looking at them through assumption. You are seeing them through awareness. This is not about labeling them as an enemy. It is about understanding that not everyone who is present is aligned. Not everyone who speaks into your life is meant to guide it. Not everyone who remains close is meant to move forward with you in the same way. And this is where the shift becomes real. Because once you see someone clearly, you cannot return to seeing them the same way again. You cannot unsee what hath been revealed. You cannot ignore the alignment that is missing. You cannot pretend that the connection carries the same meaning it once did. This does not require immediate confrontation. It does not demand drastic action in a single moment. But it does require internal honesty. It requires you to stop filtering your perception to protect comfort. It requires you to accept that your role, your path, your direction may not fully align with theirs anymore. Archangel Michael stands with you in this realization, not to separate you from people unnecessarily, but to guide you into alignment with your purpose. Because the closer you move toward clarity, the more important it becomes to recognize who truly supports that clarity and who complicates it. This person is part of your story, but they are not meant to define your direction. Their confession is not meant to control your response. It is meant to inform it. It is meant to give you the awareness you need to move differently, to interact differently, to understand the connection from a place of truth instead of assumption. And this is where your strength begins to show, not in how you react outwardly, but in how you adjust inwardly, in how you hold your awareness without needing to prove it, in how you recognize what has been revealed without needing immediate validation from others, in how you remain grounded in clarity even when the situation itself has not yet fully shifted externally. Because this moment is not about them alone. It is about you stepping into a clearer understanding of your environment, your connections, and your path forward. And once that clarity is established, everything else begins to align around it. Type ISE clearly now in the comments if you are ready to walk in awareness. Blessing code 6666 and now strengthening your discernment and guiding your next steps. There are moments when words are spoken, and then there are moments when words shift reality. This is one of those moments, because what this person has confessed is not something that can be absorbed casually, not something that can be brushed aside or reshaped into something more comfortable, and carries weight. It carries meaning, and most importantly, it carries confirmation that reaches deeper than anything you have allowed yourself to fully accept until now. Archangel Michael stands present as this realization unfolds, and his voice carries a firm clarity that leaves no space for distortion. He says, listen beyond the words. Hear the truth within them. And this is where your awareness must sharpen, because what was said is not just about the surface meaning. It is about what it reveals beneath it. At first, the confession may not seem as dramatic as your spirit expected. It may come through as a statement, a casual admission, a moment of honesty that appears almost ordinary. But something about it lingers. Something about it stays with you longer than it should. Because your spirit recognizes what your mind is still trying to process. It recognizes the pattern behind the words. It recognizes the intention behind the tone. It recognizes the truth that has now surfaced in a way that cannot be denied. And subtly, things begin to connect. Moments that once felt isolated begin to align. Conversations that seemed harmless begin to take on new meaning. Actions that you once overlooked now stand out with clarity. It is not that you are creating a new story. It is that you are finally seeing the full version of the one that was already there. This is why the confession changes everything. Because it removes the space for uncertainty. It removes the ability to keep questioning whether what you felt was real. It removes the comfort of saying, maybe I'm overthinking. No, you were perceiving. You were sensing. You were aware in ways you did not fully trust at the time. And now, that awareness has been confirmed externally. Archangel Michael emphasizes this moment with precision. He says, what you heard was not accidental. These words were not spoken without purpose. Whether this person realized the depth of what they were revealing or not, the truth has now been released. And once truth is released, it begins to work. It begins to shift understanding. It begins to realign perception. It begins to move you out of assumption and into clarity. But here is where the transformation becomes deeper. Because it is not only about what they said, it is about what you now understand because of it. You understand why certain interactions felt draining. You understand why your energy shifted around them without clear explanation. You understand why your spirit hesitated even when everything seemed fine on the surface. You understand why something within you kept pulling back, even when you tried to move forward. And with that understanding comes a realization that is both grounding and unsettling at the same time. You can no longer relate to this person in the same way. Not because you are being forced to change everything immediately, but because your awareness has changed. And awareness transforms perception. It changes how you interpret words. It changes how you receive actions. It changes how you respond internally, even before anything shifts externally. This is the moment where your inner alignment begins to take precedence over external familiarity. Because what they said has drawn a line, not one that separates you in conflict, but one that separates clarity from confusion. You are no longer standing in uncertainty. You are standing in recognition, and recognition demands response. Not a reaction driven by emotion, but a response rooted in awareness. A response that reflects what you now know, even if it is expressed quietly, even if it is expressed through distance, even if it is expressed through subtle but firm boundaries that were not present before. Archangel Michael stands as your guide in this transition, reminding you that clarity is not meant to overwhelm you. It is meant to strengthen you. You are not losing control of the situation. You are gaining understanding of it. You are not being pushed into chaos. You are being pulled into alignment. Because the truth is, what this person revealed did not take anything from you. It gave something back. It gave you clarity where there was confusion. It gave you confirmation where there was doubt. It gave you awareness where there was uncertainty. And that awareness is not something to fear, it is something to honor. Now, you stand at a point where everything begins to shift internally. You no longer need to question your perception. You no longer need to justify your intuition. You no longer need to ignore what your spirit has been trying to show you. Because now you know. And once you know, you cannot return to not knowing. Type "I embrace clarity" in the comments if you are ready to move forward in truth. Blessing code 7777 is now activating deeper understanding and alignment within your life. There comes a moment in every unfolding revelation where understanding is no longer enough. A moment where clarity reaches a level that demands something more from you. Not just awareness, not just acknowledgement, but decision. This is that moment. This is the turning point where everything you have seen, everything you have felt, everything that has now been confirmed begins to converge into a single, unavoidable truth. You must choose how you move forward. Archangel Michael steps into this space with unmistakable authority, and his presence carries a weight that cannot be ignored. He says you have seen enough. Now you must decide. There is no hesitation in his voice. There is no softness that allows delay to continue. Because what stands before you is not a question of whether the truth is real. That has already been answered. What remains is whether you will align with it or retreat from it. You feel it within you, the tension between what is familiar and what is now revealed. Part of you wants to hold on to what you know, to maintain the structure that existed before this moment, to keep things as they were because it feels easier, safer, more predictable. But another part of you, the part that has been awakening through this entire process, knows that returning to that version of reality is no longer possible. Not because it has been taken away from you, but because you have outgrown it. This is where the decision becomes real. It is not always loud. It is not always visible to others. But internally, it is powerful. It is the moment where you either honor the clarity you have received or begin to suppress it once again. It is the moment where you either step into alignment or allow yourself to drift back into the patterns that once kept you uncertain. Archangel Michael does not leave you in confusion about what this decision means. He makes it clear alignment will require change. And that is where hesitation often rises, because change does not always mean dramatic actions. It does not always mean immediate confrontation or visible separation. Sometimes, change begins quietly, within your perspective, within your boundaries, within your willingness to no longer engage in the same way. But quiet change is still powerful change. It shifts your energy. It shifts your responses. It shifts what you allow and what you no longer tolerate. And over time, those internal shifts begin to reshape your external reality in ways that are undeniable. Yet, the choice must be made. You cannot remain neutral in this moment. You cannot carry clarity and still act as if nothing has changed. You cannot hold truth and continue to operate in the same patterns that once ignored it. Because neutrality, in this case, becomes a form of avoidance. And avoidance is the very cycle you are being called to break. This is why the urgency feels stronger now. Not because you are being rushed into something unprepared, but because you have reached a level of awareness where delay no longer serves you. The longer you hesitate, the heavier the internal conflict becomes. The longer you remain undecided, the more tension builds between what you know and how you act. And that tension is not meant to stay. It is meant to push you into alignment. Archangel Michael stands as both witness and guide in this moment, reminding you that your decision is not about perfection. It is about direction. You are not required to have every answer right now. You are not expected to resolve everything in a single step. But you are being called to move in the direction of truth, to let your awareness influence your actions, even if those actions begin in small, quiet ways. Because once you choose alignment, everything begins to respond to that choice. Your clarity deepens. Your discernment strengthens. Your path becomes more defined. And what once felt complicated begins to simplify, not because the situation disappears, but because your relationship to it changes. This is the power of the turning point. It is not about controlling everything around you. It is about choosing how you stand within it. It is about deciding that you will no longer ignore what has been revealed. It is about stepping into a version of yourself that listens, that sees, that responds with awareness instead of habit. And once that decision is made, something shifts immediately. Not externally, not all at once, but internally, in a way that sets everything else in motion. Because the moment you choose alignment, you stop being pulled in two directions. You begin to move forward with clarity. Type "I choose truth" in the comments if you are ready to step into alignment. Blessing code 8888 is now activating decisive clarity within your spirit. As you stand at this turning point, understand this. Every step you take in alignment does not just transform your life. It becomes a light for someone else still standing in confusion. The word declares that those who walk in truth become vessels of light. And right now, you are being invited into that sacred flow. If your spirit is moving, if you feel that inner call, this is your moment to act. I step forward in faith and say this with you: I will not let this light stop with me. When you support this mission through Super Thanks or the PayPal link in the description, you are sowing seeds that break chains in lives you may never see, but heaven fully counts. I declare over you now, as you release your seed, doors of clarity, provision, and divine favor will open in your life. Do not delay this moment. Step forward and give as an act of obedience, and watch how God multiplies it back into your life. There is a pattern that has followed you longer than you may have realized. It has not always been obvious. It has not always been loud, but it hath been consistent. A cycle of seeing, hesitating, delaying, and then returning to the same place, carrying the same questions, the same weight, the same unfinished clarity. And now, standing in this moment of revelation, you are being shown something that changes everything. This cycle was never meant to continue. It was meant to end with you. Archangel Michael steps forward again, and his presence carries both authority and precision. He says, "Delay is repeated because you allowed it, but it will end when you decide it ends." These words are not meant to blame you. They are meant to awaken you, because within them is a truth that restores your power. The cycle was not controlling you. You were participating in it without fully realizing it. And now that you see it, you are no longer bound to repeat it. Think back for a moment. How many times have you reached a point of clarity only to pause just before taking action? How many times have you recognized something needed to change, yet told yourself, "Not now, maybe later"? How many times have you felt ready, only to retreat back into familiarity because it felt easier than stepping into the unknown? This is the pattern, and this is where it breaks. Because the confession you have now encountered is not just revealing truth about another person. It is exposing the pattern within you that allowed delay to continue. It is showing you where you hesitated, where you waited too long, where you ignored what you already understood. And while that realization may feel heavy for a moment, it also carries something powerful, the ability to choose differently now. Archangel Michael does not leave this as a passive realization. He brings instruction. He says, "You do not break delay by waiting. You break it by moving." And this movement does not have to be dramatic. It does not have to be loud or visible to others. It begins within you, in the quiet decision to respond differently than you have before. Breaking the cycle of delay starts with honesty. Honest recognition of what you now know. Honest acknowledgement that what hath been revealed cannot be undone. Honest acceptance that continuing the same pattern would only lead you back to the same place. From that honesty, action begins to take shape. Not rush action, not reactive action, but intentional action. The kind that aligns with clarity instead of avoiding it. The kind that reflects your awareness instead of contradicting it. The kind that may feel unfamiliar at first, but quickly becomes grounding because it is rooted in truth. This is where your strength is tested, not in dramatic moments, but in consistent ones. In the small choices you make after this message, in the way you respond to the person connected to this confession, in the boundaries you begin to establish, even if they are subtle at first, in the decisions you no longer postpone. Because every time you act in alignment, you weaken the cycle. And every time you delay, you reinforce it. Archangel Michael reminds you, you are not here to repeat. You are here to realign. And that distinction matters. Because repetition keeps you in motion without progress. Realignment changes your direction entirely. You are no longer at the beginning of this pattern. You are at the point where it can end. But ending it requires something from you. It requires consistency. It requires awareness that remains active, not temporary. It requires you to stay connected to the clarity you have received, even when distractions try to pull you away from it. Because distraction is often the final attempt of delay to regain control. You may notice it in subtle way. A sudden urge to minimize what you've learned. A temptation to return to old habits. A thought that tells you, maybe it's not that serious. But these are not random thoughts. They are echoes of the pattern trying to continue. And this is where your decision becomes powerful. Because now, you recognize those moments for what they are. And instead of following them, you choose differently. You pause, not to delay, but to align. You respond, not from habit, but from clarity. You move forward, not because everything is certain, but because you trust what has already been revealed. This is how the cycle ends, not in a single dramatic action, but in a series of aligned decisions that build upon each other. Decisions that reflect your awareness. Decisions that honor your clarity. Decisions that move you out of repetition and into direction. And once that shift takes place, something changes permanently. You no longer feel stuck in the same loop. You no longer revisit the same confusion. You no longer carry the same unresolved tension. Because you have stepped out of the cycle and into alignment. And that alignment begins to shape everything that comes next. Type "I break the cycle" in the comments if you are ready to move forward without delay. Blessing code 9999 is now activating momentum and alignment in your life. Here is something you must not forget as everything begins to shift within you. As clarity deepens, as truth settles, as decisions begin to take shape, there is a question that quietly rises in moments like this. What now protects me? Because when awareness increases, it can sometimes feel like vulnerability increases with it. It can feel like you are stepping out of something familiar into something unknown. But Archangel Michael steps into this moment with unwavering authority to make one thing absolutely clear. You are not unprotected. You have never been unprotected. And you are not stepping into uncertainty alone. He says, "My presence has not left you, not before this moment, not during it, and not after it." And as those words move through you, something steadies within your spirit. Because this entire process, every realization, every shift, every confirmation, has not been random. It has been guided. It has been watched. It has been protected in ways you could not fully see until now. Think about it. If you had known everything earlier, if the truth had been revealed before you were ready, would you have handled it with the same clarity you have now? Would you have seen it without reacting impulsively, without becoming overwhelmed, without losing your sense of direction? The answer is no. And that is exactly why protection was already in place. Protection is not always about preventing situations from happening. Sometimes, it is about controlling the timing of what is revealed. It is about allowing you to grow into the awareness required to handle what you are about to understand. And that is exactly what has happened here. Archangel Michael has not only been present in this moment, he hath been present in the moments leading up to it. In the hesitation you felt, in the instincts you questioned, in the delays that kept certain truths from reaching you too early. What you once saw as confusion was, in many ways, a form of protection. It gave you time. It gave you space. It gave you the ability to arrive here with a stronger sense of awareness than you had before. And now that you are here, that protection does not fade. It intensifies. Because clarity requires protection just as much as confusion did. Now that you see more, you must also be able to stand in what you see without being pulled back into old patterns. Now that you understand more, you must be able to move forward without being influenced by the same dynamics that once kept you uncertain. And this is where Archangel Michael's presence becomes even more active. He stands not only as a guide, but as a guardian of your alignment. He says, "You will not be pulled back into what you have outgrown." And that statement carries a strength that you can begin to feel within yourself. Because protection is not only external, it begins to activate internally. It becomes the part of you that no longer accepts what once felt normal. It becomes the awareness that notices misalignment immediately. It becomes the strength that allows you to maintain clarity even when faced with familiar situations. This is how protection evolves. It moves from being something that surrounds you to something that works through you. And as that shift happens, your confidence begins to change. Not in a loud or visible way, but in a grounded, steady way. You begin to trust what you see. You begin to rely on your awareness instead of questioning it. You begin to move with a sense of certainty that does not require constant reassurance. Because you are not alone in this. Archangel Michael's presence is not symbolic, it is functional. It is active in the way you think, the way you perceive, the way you respond. It is guiding you away from what no longer serves you and toward what aligns with your path. It is strengthening your discernment so that you do not have to rely on guesswork anymore. And perhaps most importantly, it is ensuring that what hath been revealed to you now becomes a foundation, not a moment of confusion, not a temporary realization, but a stable point from which you can move forward. You may still encounter the same person. You may still find yourself in familiar environments, but you will not engage with them in the same way. Because protection has shifted your perspective. It has elevated your awareness. It has grounded you in truth. And once that happens, the external no longer has the same influence it once did. This is why you can move forward without fear. Not because everything around you will immediately change, but because you have changed in how you see it, how you understand it, and how you respond to it. And that change is protected. Type "I am protected" in the comments if you trust the guidance surrounding you. Blessing code 1010 is now strengthening your protection and securing your path forward. There is a shift approaching, not distant, not abstract, but closer than you expect. And as everything within you begins to realign, as clarity settles into your spirit and truth anchors itself in your awareness, something else is already forming just ahead of you. This is not speculation. This is not imagination. This is the continuation of what has already begun. And Archangel Michael steps forward once more, his presence firm, unwavering, and deeply intentional as he speaks. You have crossed the threshold. Now you will see the outcome. What does that mean for you? It means that what hath been hidden will not remain hidden. It means that what has been unclear will begin to reveal itself in ways that feel undeniable. It means that the same situation you once questioned will now present itself with clarity so direct that you will no longer need to interpret it. You will recognize it instantly. This is where many are caught off guard. Because once truth is accepted internally, the external world begins to respond. Not always immediately, not always dramatically, but inevitably. The alignment you have chosen begins to draw out what was concealed. The awareness you now carry begins to expose what once blended into the background. And that exposure can be surprising. You may notice changes in behavior from the person connected to the confession. Subtle at first. A shift in tone. A difference in how they approach you. A hesitation where there was once confidence. These are not random changes. These are responses to the shift that has already taken place within you. Because when you see clearly, you no longer engage in the same way, and that changes the dynamic entirely. Archangel Michael emphasizes this moment with precision. He says, "Do not be surprised when truth confirms itself again. Because it will. Not as repetition, but as reinforcement. You will see patterns more clearly. You will notice details you once overlooked. You will hear things differently, interpret them differently, understand them with a depth that was not available to you before. And in that process, something powerful happens. Doubt disappears. Not because everything becomes easy, but because everything becomes clear. You no longer question your perception. You no longer wonder if you are overthinking. You no longer feel the need to justify what you sense, because what unfolds next will validate what you already know. This is why it may feel shocking, not because it is completely unexpected, but because of how directly it confirms everything you have just come to understand. It is one thing to feel something internally. It is another to see it reflected externally in a way that leaves no room for denial. And when that moment comes, you must remain steady, because the purpose of this confirmation is not to pull you into reaction. It is to solidify your alignment. It is to show you that what you have chosen, truth, awareness, clarity, is not only internal, but real in the world around you. Archangel Michael stands as your anchor in this phase. He reminds you do not need to prove what you see. And that is important, because when truth reveals itself, there can be a temptation to act immediately, to respond outwardly, to confront or explain or correct. But not every confirmation requires a visible reaction. Sometimes, the most powerful response is quiet certainty, the ability to see clearly and remain grounded, the ability to understand without needing validation from others, the ability to move differently without announcing why. This is where your transformation becomes visible, not through words, but through presence. Because as you stand in this new clarity, everything around you begins to reorganize. Conversations shift, interactions change, opportunities adjust, not because you forced them to, but because your alignment influences the environment you are part of. And this is where the shock turns into understanding. You begin to realize that what is unfolding is not working against you. It is working for you. It is revealing what needed to be seen. It is confirming what needed to be known. It is clearing space for what is meant to align with you moving forward. Nothing that is being exposed now is meant to harm your path. It is meant to refine it. And as this refinement continues, you will find that what once felt complicated becomes simpler. What once felt uncertain becomes defined. What once felt heavy begins to lift. Because truth, once fully revealed, does not create chaos. It creates direction. And you are now stepping into that direction with clarity you did not have before. Type "I see the outcome" in the comments if you are ready to walk forward with certainty. Blessing code 1111 is now activating confirmation and alignment in your path. This is where everything comes together, not in theory, not in possibility, but in reality. Because you have moved through awareness, through revelation, through confirmation, and now you stand at the edge of something that can no longer be postponed. This is not just another moment in your life. This is a defining moment, a moment that separates who you were from who you are becoming. And Archangel Michael stands before you one final time in this message, not with a whisper, but with a command that carries divine certainty. He says, this is your moment. Do not ignore it again. There is no confusion left. There is no uncertainty left. The voice you once ignored has spoken clearly. The truth you once questioned has been confirmed. The person you once misunderstood has been revealed. And the cycle you once repeated has now been exposed. Everything has led you here, not to overwhelm you, not to pressure you, but to position you. Because positioning is what determines what comes next. You are no longer standing in the same place you were before this message began. Something has shifted within you. Something has awakened. You feel it in the way you think, in the way you see, in the way you process everything that once felt unclear. That is not temporary. That is transformation. And transformation does not ask for permission. It demands response. Archangel Michael makes this clear. What you do now will echo forward. This is where your choice becomes more than personal. It becomes directional. Because the way you respond to this moment will influence what unfolds next in your life. If you step forward in alignment, everything begins to open with clarity. If you step back into avoidance, everything begins to repeat with complexity. The difference is not in the situation, it is in your response to it. And you are ready. Even if part of you still feels uncertain. Even if part of you still wants to hesitate. Even if part of you is adjusting to the weight of what you now understand. You are ready because you are aware. You are ready because you see clearly. You are ready because you cannot return to what you once accepted without feeling the truth pulling you forward again. This is what makes this moment sacred. It is not about perfection. It is about alignment. It is not about knowing every step. It is about taking the next one with clarity. It is not about controlling everything around you. It is about standing firmly within yourself and allowing that alignment to shape everything else. Archangel Michael stands as your witness in this decision, but also as your protector moving forward. He is not leaving you at this point. He is walking with you through it. Every step you take in alignment strengthens your path. Every decision you make in truth reinforces your clarity. Every moment you choose awareness over avoidance deepens your connection to what is meant for you. And this is where the message becomes complete. Not because it ends, but because it begins within you. You carry it now. The awareness, the clarity, the understanding, the decision. And as you move forward, you will begin to see the results of what you chose here. Not all at once, but steadily. Not dramatically, but undeniably. Because alignment does not rush, but it always unfolds. This is your moment. Do not return to silence. Do not return to delay. Do not return to ignoring what you already know. Step forward. Stand in clarity. Move in truth. And watch what begins to change because of it. Type I step forward in the comments if you are ready to walk in your alignment. Blessing code 1212 is now sealing your decision and activating your next chapter. As you step into this moment of alignment, understand this truth. Every time you respond to divine clarity, you become a vessel through which heaven reaches others who are still searching for light. The word declares that when one light is lifted, it illuminates the path for many, and right now, you are that light. I say this with you. I will not let this revelation stop with me. When you sow into this mission through Super Thanks with a PayPal link in the description or QR code on your screen, you are not giving to a channel. You are releasing a seed into souls waiting for truth to reach them. I declare over you now, as you give, heaven will open doors of provision, clarity, and protection in ways you cannot yet see. This is not a suggestion. This is your moment of obedience. Step forward now and release your seed and watch how God multiplies it back into your life.